90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box. My name is Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is my co-host and, yes, my brother, Tim Leonard. Hello, brother. How you doing?
Good morning, brother. Doing well. How are you?
We should say that From the Press Box is part of the WHPC Sports Talk family. Sports Talk Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Also, an additional version on Tuesday, 10 p.m. to midnight. Anyway, brother, we actually had sports news, because the NFL draft actually happened Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And it was nice to see actual sports on ESPN, first of all, where it was new sports.
I don't know if I would call it sports, but it certainly was sports related.
Well, it's better than some of the things they've been showing. I mean,
the only athletic activity involved was Roger Goodell getting out of his chair every once in a while.
Well, a lot of people wanted to boo him. There's always those people who
they booed him. They booed him. Don't get that wrong. They booed him still.
Yeah, someone told me that they had a joke where they had booing from, I guess, a previous draft, just for a joke in the beginning. I'm not sure if that was the case, but someone told me that. Anyway, brother,
didn't even catch that, but they probably did.
Just as a fun thing, just because Roger Goodell is a funny guy. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, of course. Yeah. He's Mr. Laughs.
Yeah. So I should say, brother, before we start this, I just want to say that I was happy to see ESPN and ABC on Thursday have two separate crews doing the show. It was nice to see that, and the only reason I say that is because over the years ESPN has taken over ABC Sports, something that never would have happened with Roone Arledge. And what we saw on ABC was a primetime thing on Thursday on ABC, which they need programming. It was nice to see that ESPN had their crew and ABC had another crew. So I was happy to see that. Just as a person who works in the business. So, and you work in the business too. So.
For a jobs perspective, yes. I mean, I'll be honest. I thought it was a little bit annoying because there were a couple times where I flipped back from one channel to another, and I was kind of like, all right, well, who's on what channel here? Like, I would like to watch Mel Kiper. But is he on ESPN? Is he on ABC? Is he splitting time between both? And
yeah, that part was a little different. But Mel Kiper and ESPN go together like Dick Vitale and ESPN. So, that's the way to look at it. But anyway, getting to the draft, the NFL draft, a lot of things going down. First of all, the chanting you heard, or the yelling you heard. After the first round of the Giants pick was fire Dave Gettleman, and I believe it was you, brother, all the way in Queens being heard.
It was me leading. I'll tell you what. Here's two things for me on this draft. I will say, and I said it Thursday night. I was not happy with Dave Gettleman for not trading down and not making that happen, because I thought that was really for him. I thought it was job one. As far as this draft goes, it was to acquire more draft capital for a what should have been a very desirous pick, and the Dolphins. He should have been able to get the Dolphins or the Chargers, two teams that both needed quarterbacks and both were picking behind the Giants. He should have been able to work some kind of a trade out,
right?
And to allow that to not happen. And for those teams to feel so comfortable with who they were picking and what was going on and to not have to give up anything to move up and to acquire those quarterbacks, I still think was unforgivable. Now, that being said, I thought the Giants actually had a pretty good draft. But that, to me, not trading down from 4 to 6, or even if Andrew Thomas was going to be your pick, pretty much every mock draft I saw, he was not at the number 4. Nobody had him that high.
Right.
So if he was your guy, you could have traded down to 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 and probably still wound up with Andrew Thomas. Now, I don't know that there was that big of a difference between any of the tackles who were taken in the first round. Tristan Wirfs, Thomas, Mekhi Becton, who eventually went to the Jets, and there's one name I'm forgetting. But all of those guys seemingly had there was no standout among those four. Let's put it that way. And if and I don't even have a problem with that. But if you wind up with somebody who is in that group, then if you can trade down and you have four different players you can select from, then trade down and don't worry about it. Now, what I have managed to deduce from how the draft went was that the Giants went with Andrew Thomas, maybe not necessarily because they liked him better than those other players, but because he was the guy who was the easiest to plug in at left tackle, because he has experience at the position. He is, he's played the position. He can play the position. Jedrick Wills from Alabama was the fourth name. Sorry. But he was a guy who could be, he would plug in at left tackle, and it wouldn't be like he played mostly right tackle in college, and because of his size and ability, that he was envisioned as a left tackle in the future. Because the Giants still have Nate Solder, and Nate Solder is going to be around for at least another year, because he's on a big money free agent contract that the Giants signed him to a few years ago, and he's not going anywhere because he really has underperformed his contract, and nobody's going to take on that money. So the Giants have Nate Solder for at least another year or two. So, we'll see what happens and where it goes, but more than likely Andrew Thomas is the left tackle of the future for the Giants. And as they say, he will be protecting Daniel Jones's blind side, assuming things go well, assuming he's not Eric Flowers, which I think is a pretty unanimous projection that he will be better than Eric Flowers.
Well, you hope so.
Yeah, well, everybody hopes so. But that's what we're looking at as far as, maybe why the Giants went with Andrew Thomas. Now, I don't have a problem with Andrew Thomas as a player. But like I said, that's something that Gettleman, he should have been holding that up between the Chargers and the Dolphins and saying, hey, who wants control? Who wants to be able to take their guy? And I can't imagine that the Chargers and the Dolphins had a communication on this pick, and that the Chargers would say, well, hey, Miami, who are you taking? And that the Dolphins would have said, well, we want Tua, and the Chargers would say, all right, yeah, we want Herbert. Yeah, just go ahead. Because what if the Dolphins all of a sudden turn around and take Herbert? Well, then the Chargers are like, oh, we didn't really want Tua because of his injury history, or we don't think he's going to be the guy. We see him as a potential bust or whatever. Or were the Chargers just coming into the draft saying, all right, well, we'll take whichever quarterback they don't take?
Well, they needed a quarterback, so
yeah, I know, but it just kind of, I don't know. It just, the whole thing just really kind of rankled me in that, for me, Dave Gettleman, like I said before, Dave Gettleman's primary job for me was to try to trade that pick to get at least another. I mean, even if you get just a third rounder, the Chargers, they had the number 6 pick, so fine, give him the number 6 pick and a third rounder, and at least you have another good player coming in.
It was a deep draft, brother.
It was very deep draft.
So I think
a lot of quality.
This draft probably you could have done that easier because there's so much available talent-wise. So I was very impressed with some of the picks.
There was a lot of quality talent available. I mean, this draft. I mean, when even you got into the third and the fourth round, it's like there's still good players here. It's not it's not like there wasn't a massive drop off until really like probably the 6th round and whatnot. But this for what the Giants did, and we can get into some of the specific picks, but I just, I like what they did, especially in the first four rounds. Thomas, like I said, they needed an O-line guy, and they needed a guy who was going to be an anchor. That is Thomas is now that guy. 6'5", 315 pounds. That's your anchor for the next 10 years. You hope, fingers crossed, that he turns into that kind of franchise player.
I hope so.
Then Gettleman got what a lot of people thought was one of the steals of the draft when he picked Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama, in the second round. A lot of people had Xavier McKinney as a first-round talent. So I don't think the Giants were looking to go safety in the second round. But when you have a player like that who's available, you can't just force a pick and say, all right, well, we need a wide receiver, so let's take a wide receiver here. Because most of the top 10 receivers were already off the board. I shouldn't say that. Top 6 plus receivers, because the guy who I talked about last week, Pittman from USC, he went to the Colts a couple picks before the Giants' second-round pick. So you were already losing a lot of depth at wide receiver. But, the Giants certainly could have picked Denzel Mims, who the Jets wound up picking in the second round. But when you have somebody like Xavier McKinney, who's available, he could be another Landon Collins. That's how good this guy is. And Landon Collins was another guy who was out of Alabama, who was an All-Pro for the Giants before they got into a contract squabble and they unloaded him. But this kid is a smart player. He flies around. He's got a lot of good tackler, and he is a guy that could very quickly turn into a leader on the defense for the Giants. And a lot of people were talking about Isaiah Simmons and the Giants should take him, and he's a multi-position guy from Clemson. I tell you what, McKinney is maybe not the multi-positional guy that Simmons is, but he's got a lot of similar qualities. And he is a guy who will be, he will become one of your leaders on defense, if not the leader on the defense. You look at like I said, I don't think the comparisons to Landon Collins are outlandish, but I'm eager to see what this kid turns into in a couple of years. And then third round, the Giants took Matt Peart from UConn, an offensive lineman. And this is a guy who he's a local kid, fairly local. I forget where he's from exactly, but he grew up a Giants fan.
Okay.
And he wound up at UConn, which, let's face it, is not the best football school in the country by far. But this kid this was the phrase or the term of the weekend, it seemed. He's a developmental tackle, which means don't expect to see too much from him this season. But by next season, he and Thomas should be the two bookends on the Giants' offensive line. So this could turn, if both of these guys develop like the Giants and like Dave Gettleman expect, then these two guys could turn into the Brickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold for the Giants.
That's a nice comparison, brother.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, if these two guys can turn into those two guys, then no matter what anybody else does in this draft, then this is a successful draft for the Giants. Because if they can get 40% of their offensive line for the next 7-8 years from one draft, that's a great draft.
Sure.
That's going to depend on how well Matt Peart develops over the next year and what he turns into. They keep talking about his length. He's got remarkably long arms. Which
was it 81 inches? I don't even know. Guy?
I think it was even longer, to be honest with you. But
okay.
I think the 81 inches guy was a receiver.
That's right.
But he needs to get stronger, which is he's 6'7", 318, and the needs to get stronger part. He went to UConn. How strong did he have to be to play at UConn? He didn't. That's something that when you take the step up in competition level, that he's going to realize I got to get in the weight room and I got to get stronger. I got to get a little bigger, and that's going to be part of his development. That's why developmental tackle. He'll probably wind up playing at about 6'7" and probably 330 or 335 or so. What the NFL likes in linemen They want them all to get bigger as they come out of college, and realistically, they should get bigger. I mean, let's face it. I mean, yes, I know 6'7", 318 is a mountain of a human being, but how many kids at 21, 22, or however old these kids are, how many of them won't gain weight naturally? And all of them will. That's just the human body.
Right, but the history of that type of thing. When they leave the game, they don't lose the weight, and then they have all these health issues.
Well,
we've seen that story over and over. So
of course, brother, of course. But that's an issue for down the road. But what I'm talking about is when these guys are getting bigger, it's got to be good weight. It's got to be it's got to be weight room weight, not just I'm hungry and I feel like eating 5 steaks weight.
Well, so that's why you can eat barbecue places are really good for these teams.
Yes.
So,
but they don't go to all they have chefs. The teams try to control as much as possible what these guys eat, and part of that is having chefs at practice who prepare meals for these guys.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When the Giants had training camp up in Albany, they used to have a chef making food for the media.
Wow.
You just go in there and tell the guy what you want, and he makes it for you. I mean, literally.
Wow. It must have saved you some money.
It was like going to a restaurant. It was like you have a few choices. You just go up there, you tell the guy, "Oh yeah, give me whatever," and it's like get the pans out, but bada bing, flip it around,
wow.
Fry it up or whatever, and you got a meal.
I did not know that advantage of being a journalist up in Albany.
Well, that was one of the few.
That's the only. What are you talking
about? So but that's the kind of treatment that you get as a professional athlete. Is that when you're going to practice and you're there, like I said, the team wants as much control over a player's life as they can get, and one of those ways that they can control that and also try to ensure that the player is eating healthy and getting some vegetables and getting proteins and whatnot, and not just sucking down Big Macs or whatever, is by having team meals after practice, and then all right, guys, this is what you need to eat. So this is a good situation. But anyway,
it's also good for building up team character.
Right. Well, the team bonding and whatnot. If you have players spending time together, that's good for team chemistry. And, and it's not 53 guys all going off in different directions, or a couple of handfuls of players here and there, all going to wherever they go, going on Hooters for wings or whatever. That is the kind of place, that's where they want them to stay out of, because now you're eating wings and beer and whatever, and those aren't good. That's not good weight. So, but that he's a guy. Parrott described more of a pass blocker than a run blocker, but he's solid against the run. This guy, Matt Parrott is going to be a key to how successful this draft is for the Jets. Because Giants, I'm sorry. If he pans out, then again, this is because I don't have any doubt at all that Xavier McKinney is a good pick and will wind up being one of the values of this draft. Thomas, you can only assume that at number 4, Thomas is going to be the goods. So here's Matt Parrott, and like I said, if he pans out, this automatically makes the draft successful for the Giants. Just to go quickly through the rest of the picks, Darnay Holmes, a cornerback from UCLA, supposed to have real quick feet, aggressive cornerback, which is sometimes good, but sometimes can be bad if you have a slick receiver who knows how to set guys up. But good athletic guy. Then Shane Lemieux, an O-line guy from Oregon. Gettleman, he loves his hog mollies, as he calls them, but this guy's 6'4", 310. So, not necessarily a star, but, he's a guy who pretty safe pick. Let's put it that way.
Right. What about Cam Brown?
Cam Brown, a linebacker from Penn State. That used to mean something. Penn State was linebacker U. A big kid, 6'5", 233. He's I'm kind of wondering what he's going to give the Giants, because one of the reviews on him said that he has long stretches of invisibility. That's not a good thing. And slow play recognition skills. So if they can speed up his brain and get him to recognize plays more quickly, this is a big kid. He's got some decent speed, and he could be a guy that works out. But fifth round is, at that point in the draft, it's a crapshoot. If you take a guy who's from a good school, who's started for a team, and you just take a shot with him and see. Then the Giants in the 7th round, they had 4 picks. They went with 3 more linebackers and a corner. They also had the final pick of the draft, and they made Tay Crowder, a linebacker from Georgia. He was this year's Mr. Irrelevant.
Well, I noticed that for the most part, there was no wide receivers picking on or anything. And I think
that was a mistake. The Giants are a little more set at wide receiver than the Jets are, because they have Golden Tate and they have Darius Slayton. I would have liked to have seen an upgrade at the position. I think Darius Slayton had a great rookie season. I think he's going to improve as a second-year guy. And Golden Tate is a solid veteran who, let's face it, if the Giants' line improves, then their passing game will improve. Because if Daniel Jones has time to throw, then Golden Tate and Darius Slayton certainly are capable receivers.
Right.
We'll see what happens at tight end. There was rumors before and during the draft that the Giants were looking to trade Evan Ingram. I don't know if that's still going to happen, but we'll see. But I don't know. Maybe Ingram has had his injury issues since the Giants drafted him a couple years ago. So I don't know. We'll see if something happens. In these next couple of weeks. If the Giants are still looking to deal him, or if that was something they were just looking to do to get a pick during the draft. So, overall, I gotta give Gettleman and the Giants props, because they took a lot of good players, and while not everything filled a need, like I said, as much as I like McKinney, it wasn't a need pick, but I'll tell you what, I think it was a pretty good draft for the Giants.
Well, that's why on ESPN they have the thing, Mel Kiper's top 5 for the next pick.
Right.
So about the best players. It's not like, does the team need them or not? It's always the best player. So that's
the best player. That's because theoretically that's what you're supposed to do in the draft. It's one thing, like if there's a player who's on the board, and let's say he's who you have rated as the best player available. If you have a guy who's like an offensive lineman, let's say, and he's the best player available, but the third best player available is a wide receiver, and you have a need there, well, chances are you're going to take the wide receiver. But if you have grades on players, and the next best player at a position you need is 10 players lower, then you're going to take whoever the best player is.
Right.
And that to me is the key to the draft. You can't reach for need, because now you're reaching for players who aren't as good. So now you're getting guys who don't necessarily have the talent that you need from them. And if you're drafting a mediocre receiver, well, chances are he's not going to be with your team very long. So draft a good player at another position, he'll be with you. Players come and go. That's the league. That's how it works. But if you get good players, then those players will stay around a little longer, and you figure it out. You figure it out as far as where guys play and what positions they play. I mean, because all of these guys are flexible.
Brother, just have to take a little break. This hour of From the Press Box is brought to you by the Retro Mix. Join Colton Murray every Sunday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. for the Retro Mix. And also, don't forget Good Gold coming up right after From the Press Box. Join Big Ed Newlands from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, playing the songs that radio sort of forgotten about, all the great oldies. That's what Ed Newlands does with the Good Gold Show every Monday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, right here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. Now, brother, before we get to the Jets, a couple of things. First of all, the New England Patriots, who might need a quarterback, did not choose one in the draft. A little shocking, I thought. Who are they going to be going after then? Who will be their quarterback then? I guess.
I don't want to dwell too long on the Patriots, brother, because
I understand, but I'm just saying.
And they're annoying. I genuinely thought, this has nothing to do with any personal bias I might have. I thought the Patriots had a horrible draft.
Right. Just
atrocious. I don't know what they were thinking when they made their picks. It just made no sense to me. They took a Division II safety, I think it was, in the first round. Their other picks were equally puzzling. Like you said, no quarterback at all during the draft. I didn't understand that part of it in any way whatsoever, because there were quarterbacks available. Jake Fromm was a guy who they could have picked. What's his name? Jacob Eason was another guy they could have picked. So I have no idea what Bill Belichick was doing. Kyle Duggar in the first round from something called Lenoir Rhine in Canada. That's your first round. They didn't have a first round pick, but that was their first pick of the draft in the second round. And then they took Josh Uche from Michigan, an edge rusher, a versatile kid. That's what Belichick likes. He likes guys he can plug into different spots. And the Duggar kid, the guy their first choice was compared to Patrick Chung, who obviously was a long time staple in the Patriots defense. But in the third round, they pick another edge rusher. Then in another pick in the third round, they went for a tight end. Then they went for another tight end in the third round. That was the pick that the Jets traded to the Patriots, the number 101. So the Patriots go tight end UCLA in the third round, and then 10 picks later, they pick another tight end from Virginia Tech, Dalton Keene. And I'm like, by this point, I'm like, what are the Patriots doing? I don't get this. And then Belichick doubles down on the idiocy, and he picks a kicker in the fifth round. I was just like, are you kidding me? What are you doing? Kickers are the guys you sign after the draft, the undrafted free agents.
They're the weekly signings.
The kicker from Marshall. The kid has seems to have a big leg, but the Patriots right now, they need help. They need positional help. And you're talking about in the fifth round to take a kicker and not take a quarterback at that point. I don't understand it. And then sixth round, they went with a couple of offensive linemen and a linebacker. And then in the seventh round, they had one pick left, and they went with a real, as my old roommate used to say, a light in the ass old lineman, 6'2", 291, which these days that's a small lineman. So I don't get what the Patriots were doing, and I'm fine with this because I hope the draft was a disaster.
Well, next season is this coming season, we should say, is going to be the proof that Belichick is a really good coach or just a guy who had lucky players. The fact that he had Tom Brady for all those years, so I think this is going to if they don't do good this year, then a lot of people might just look at him just a little bit different. Hey, he's won all those Super Bowls and everything, but they'll say, oh, he won it like only with Tom Brady. It's many ways Brady like. Yeah, well, in many ways, it's like Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson, oh, well, you have Michael Jordan, one of your best players in the world, as your main guy. Well, yeah, you're going to score. But then he went to Los Angeles and did it again. So, he was able to,
with Shaq and Kobe. Come on.
Yeah, I know that.
If any, he went to L.A. and got better players.
Yeah, I know that. I agree. So anyway, it was interesting that the Patriots did not pick a quarterback. Also, what was the other thing I had here? Oh, before we get to the Jets, what's the deal with Tom Brady visiting he can't visit the Buccaneers to get some information, even though we signed with them now?
Yeah, chances are that the NFL is going to fine the Buccaneers. Tom Brady has just been breaking rules and laws and making himself at home in Tampa Bay. Brady, he was kicked out of a local park last week because he was trying to work out because the city has closed its parks. So the cops saw him working out there and basically told him to leave because the parks are closed and you're not supposed to be here. And Brady was like, okay, I don't understand it. Why does he need to work out in the park when he's living in Derek Jeter's house?
That's a good point.
I have to assume that Derek Jeter's house has a pretty big backyard.
I'm pretty sure it does, but maybe he feels more comfortable being in the park where, maybe no one notices him, and maybe, he doesn't have to be worried about his wife and his kids. Maybe he wants to get away from the wife for a couple of hours. I don't know. I have no idea. That.
Well, but so a couple days later, Brady walks into a house, just walked in, turns the knob, doesn't knock on the door, doesn't ring the bell, just walks into the house, and the guy who owns the house is sitting there, so they're like, hey, dude, what's up? And apparently doesn't recognize him immediately. Okay. So Brady's like, bro, what's up? I'm looking for, is this Byron's house? Because Byron Leftwich is the Tampa Bay offensive coordinator. And the homeowner was like, yeah, no, dude, Byron, this is not Byron's house. Who are you? And it took him a minute. But then Brady, he had dropped his bag. He was carrying a bag with him, and he picked up his bag and just bolted out of the house. And as he was leaving, the guy realized, hey, that's Tom Brady. I don't understand how you don't recognize Tom Brady the second he walks in the door. He's like, how many 6'4" dudes are walking around like that? That
sounds like, brother, it sounds like a beginning of a future Law and Order episode where someone gets killed by mistake for entering the wrong house.
Exactly. Can you imagine if the guy was like one of those like real crazy Florida guys with, like Second Amendment and guns and whatever, and just blew Tom Brady away and says, hey, broken in my house. I mean, it could have ended very badly.
It could have. I had it. Anyway, bro, let's go through the Jets draft.
Just to finish this up, Brady is not allowed because he was there to pick up a playbook.
Oh, okay.
And NFL rules state that you can't have meetings or even look at a playbook with an offensive coach before the start of the team's off-season program. And nobody's started their off-season program yet because of obviously the coronavirus and the lockdowns and whatnot. So Brady, other teams called the commissioner's office and said, like, hey, this guy is violating a rule. And it's obvious now that he's doing this because this whole story came out. So I don't know what's going to happen to the Buccaneers. There's definitely going to be a fine at best levied. I mean, I suppose it's possible they could lose a draft pick because of this. Right. But I assume just because of the way things are in the world today, that more than likely the NFL will just fine the Buccaneers, I don't know, probably six figures or something, maybe $100,000, which, let's face it, the NFL is nothing.
That's chump change.
That's. I think that's what we're looking at. I think the league will be eager for this to go away as quickly as possible.
Right. Okay. Let's quickly go through the Jets draft. They actually picked a quarterback. They picked a wide receiver and a running back, and but also typical offensive line and cornerback connection.
Yeah,
so,
well, I mean, the quarterback was the part that made no sense to me whatsoever. You can still get good players or take a shot at somebody in the fourth round. Why the Jets went quarterback, and especially a quarterback I don't even know. I mean, they could have had Jake Fromm from Georgia in the fourth round, and they're picking a kid from Florida International.
Right.
I don't get it. I mean, this is a guy who's never going to play, unless Sam Darnold gets hurt. Never going to play. So that part of it, I didn't understand. Like I said, Fromm was available. Eason was available. Supposedly better quarterbacks were available.
Right.
And they didn't pick they picked this kid, James Morgan, out of Florida International. But anyway, just to go back to the first pick, Mekhi Becton, another tackle out of Louisville, one of the big four tackles that we were talking about before. I genuinely thought they were going to go with Tristan Wirfs here, but Becton was the pick. 6'7", 364 pounds, brother.
That's pretty big.
That's a very large human being. I'll tell you what. I've seen people. Like the limited times that I've covered the NFL and that I've written about football players. You cannot envision how large 6'7", 364 is unless you're standing next to it, because it just for me anyway, it just boggles my mind that people can be this big. Mekhi Becton, his nickname is Mount Becton. When your nickname it makes you a mountain, that for a football team, that's a good thing. But
consider there's a lot of other people who also could be called Mountain. To actually be called it is something special, I would think.
Becton, I like Becton. I like the pick. Like I said, I probably would have gone with Wirfs just because an Iowa lineman usually is a very good thing to have. But this kid supposedly is an athletic freak. Actually has speed. I think he ran. I want to say a 5.1 in a 40-yard dash. Now, me personally, I don't care about 40-yard dash with linemen. How many times have you ever seen a lineman run 40 yards in the NFL? It doesn't happen.
No, they run about 10 yards.
Exactly. I want quickness. I want burst. I want a guy who is going to be able to fire out and hit somebody. I don't care what his 40 speed is. He's not running 40 yards. So
never. None of these guys run 40 yards. Unless they're chasing a player who's running down the field, but they're not the ones doing it. That's
my point. I mean, 40 time can tell you a little bit about athletic ability. And yes, Mekhi Becton has that. But unless his 40 time is ridiculously slow, which tells you that he can't handle the weight that he has on his frame, right? Then I don't care about 40 time with linemen. It doesn't matter. The concern with Mekhi Becton, and this goes back to what we were talking about before, brother, with food. This guy has a tendency to get heavy, and that is the concern for him. Is this guy going to wind up eating himself out of the league? And if the Jets can get a handle on that, and this kid understands, hey, not all food is good food, and not all free food is good food. It sounds crazy that we're talking about a kid who's already 364 and could wind up eating himself out of the league.
You can't get too big, bro. I mean, he's 6'7", so you can probably go to 380 or 390.
No,
6'7". No, really?
No, you don't want him. You don't want him.
You can't have him go 13 more pounds.
The most he's going is 3.7. I guarantee you, the Jets probably want him to take weight off. I guarantee you, they would prefer it if he was playing around 350.
Well, he's already big. 6'7" has a natural weight anyway.
I get it. I get it. But you don't want this kid getting bigger.
Well,
because if first of all, any bigger, he's going to get slower, and he's not going to have you lose the athletic ability the bigger you get. So that's the concern for this kid. But if he can keep his weight in the range where it is now, and by the range I mean probably somewhere between 350 and 370, and he stays on top of it and doesn't get out of control with the food, he's going to be a good one, and he'll be the guy for Sam Darnold who will be protecting Sam Darnold's back for the next 10 years.
Right.
So, that is the hope. So, we'll see what happens with the kid. He's got, obviously 6'7". He's got long arms. He's a guy. He throws people around. He is that big and that's difficult to get around.
350, you do that, brother.
Well, that's the point. Is when you get. I mean, even 20 years ago, guys this big were unheard of. And this is a kid who, is able to play at this weight and this height, and do, basically just amazing things that, like I said, even 20 years ago that you couldn't find somebody this big who could actually play. And nowadays, I don't want to say it's standard these days, but it's a lot more common than certainly than it was even a decade ago. But Mekhi Becton is he again. This is another one where the Eric Flowers disclaimer applies. But he should be a Jet, and he should be a productive guy who leads their line for the next decade. That's what you're expecting when you're picking a lineman this high, is for that guy to be on your line and be at left tackle for the next decade.
Well, you hope so. The next pick for the Jets was a wide receiver named Denzel Mims.
Yes. This guy, he rose up the boards. He had a really, really good combine. probably the best one among the wide receivers. This is the weird thing is apparently he doesn't have the greatest hands in the world, but he's also known for making circus catches, like the Odell Beckham, the one-handed catch. He makes crazy catches like that, but then he'll drop a pass that hits him in the chest. So I don't get it. Mims has crazy good speed. He's a good yards after the catch guy. Just get him the ball and put him in space and let him go, and that's exactly what the Jets needed. But he's more of a straight ahead kind of guy than somebody who is going to shake defenders at the line. So he needs to be able to use that speed and get off blocks and get away from coverage. But I guarantee you, Sam Darnold is thrilled with this pick because the Jets lost Robbie Anderson to free agency, and they are so lacking at wide receiver. I don't know. I mean, the Jets. I thought they were going to add at least one, if not two more wide receivers. That's how dry they are at wide receiver. It's barren at that position, and they desperately need to add somebody before the season starts. But at least with Denzel Mims, Darnold has a legitimate target who should be able to do some damage and will do some damage early because he's really the only decent target that Darnold has. So they're going to need to develop some chemistry immediately because I don't. This is the problem. The only problem that I had with Joe Douglas in the draft was the lack of a second wide receiver because I thought he made some good picks. A third round, Ashton Davis, a safety out of Cal. This kid, he was a walk-on at Cal, but he's got great speed. He was a hurdles guy at Cal. He was won like the Pac-10 title at the 110 hurdles. Pretty decent size, 6'1", 202 for a safety is a little light, but that's pretty good size, 6'1". Supposedly hits big hitter, good football instincts, and a good athlete. Obviously, if a guy is track star and a football player, he's probably a good athlete. I don't know. The only thing I'm wondering is, did they take this kid because it wasn't a need by any means? The Jets' safety is probably the Jets' best position, but are they taking him for insurance in case the whole Jamal Adams thing doesn't get worked out? If the Jets all of a sudden decide, Jamal Adams wants too much money, we don't have to pay him yet. If he starts becoming a disruption, do the Jets just say, all right, you know what? If somebody wants to give us like a number one and a number two or whatever, and give us good value for Jamal Adams, are we going to move him? And I know Jet fans don't want that to happen because Jamal Adams really has become the face of the franchise and very much a vocal leader on that team. But if it becomes, too much about Jamal Adams complaining about his contract when he doesn't really have a leg to stand on yet, but if that becomes too much of an issue, will the Jets and Joe Douglas pull the trigger on a deal to get rid of the distraction? That's my concern with this pick.
What about Ashton Davis, brother? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We talked about Ashton Davis.
Yeah, that's the guy we just talked
about. Jabari
Zuniga. Apparently no relation to Daphne Zuniga, brother, the actress.
Okay.
That's Melrose Place and Spaceballs.
Of course.
But Jabari Zuniga is, to me, it was a reach pick, and they probably could have gone somewhere else. But this is a pick. They did this in the third round last year too, and I can't remember the guy they did it with, but it turned out to be a disaster because he just couldn't play. But Zuniga is a guy who had things gone well for him in college, he would have been a much higher pick. But the Jets need an edge rusher. He's got great burst. He's got good length at 6'3" and 264. Doesn't have much as far as pass rush moves, but he's quick and he makes O linemen have to deal with it. So, you'd like him to be a little bit stronger so he can get guys out of the way and maybe develop a move or two that he can go to. But the Jets need a little bit of impact on the edge and for their pass rushing. They haven't had that. They didn't have it last year, and it's been a little while since the Jets had somebody who could be a threat on the edge. So this was basically third round, take a shot, and let's see, and let's hope this guy develops into something that we can use.
Right.
So it's basically let's pick a good athlete and let's hope for the best. Kid went to Florida. It's a good program, but for whatever reason, things didn't work out necessarily the way they he expected them to. Let's see what he can do with some NFL coaching and refinements in his technique, and let's go from there. So, it's basically take a shot, roll the dice, and see what happens with this kid. Another Florida kid in the fourth round, Lyla Kalpa, a good running back. He's not a star running back. He's a guy who I don't have much doubt he'll make the roster. I just don't know what he's going to do, especially with Le'Veon Bell around. Le'Veon Bell he's going to play most downs, and Bell he's either going to run the ball, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I don't know how much playing time Perrine will get. Obviously, like a special teams time, but Perrine is a guy. He can take a hit. He can break a tackle. He's got pretty decent speed. The drawbacks are supposed to be that his vision isn't very good, but he's also supposed to be a plus receiver. So who knows? Maybe the Jets use him, and then when they go to a 5 receiver package, maybe he comes in and they look to him out of the backfield or something. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
We'll just see. But basically, when you get to the fourth round, you're starting to get the guys who, maybe they have one skill, and you hope to augment that skill, but develop the other ones to turn him into an NFL player. And this guy, like I said, he's got some decent speed. He's got good hands out of the backfield. So maybe they turn him into some kind of a pass catching back. I don't know.
I've always believed that. I've always thought the draft, all drafts have gone on too long. I mean, I've always thought, maybe eight rounds would be the best number.
Well, it's a 7.
7. I'm sorry. Well,
yeah. They, especially in the NFL, the draft has to be this long because there's 53 players on the roster. You have to be able to replace them. And
good point.
You can't just let it turn into a free agency, mess at the end. If you went like 3 or 4 rounds and just told everybody else, all right, you're all free agents. Well, everybody's going to want to try to get on a good team. And what if you have the crap team? What if you're the Washington Redskins? What are you supposed to do? So that's why I get it. But
but then again, it'd be nice if. I'm going to go to the Redskins. Okay, I get to prove myself in 1 or 2 year contracts, and then you're able to rewrite it or something, something like that.
Wow.
Anyway, the Jets also picked a quarterback, James Morgan.
Didn't make any sense at all. Because the reason it doesn't make any sense, why not take a wide receiver here? Why not find the best available receiver and take him and get Sam Darnold some more help? This pick does nothing to help the offense. James Morgan is, at best, a backup quarterback.
Right, but what? Over the last few years, the Jets have had problems with quarterbacks staying healthy. So maybe, this is that mentality.
Sign somebody. Sign. Jameis Winston is going to the Saints. Sign Jameis Winston. He's going to be the 3rd string quarterback for the Saints. And it's going to be Drew Brees. It's going to be Taysom Hill. And then it's going to be Jameis Winston. So why not sign him? I can't imagine that Jameis Winston is getting more than $5 million from the Saints. So why not sign him?
Right.
And say, all right, hey, you're going to be Sam Darnold's backup. And take a year, get yourself right. We're not expecting you to be here next year. But, maybe you get in if Darnold gets hurt or if he gets mono again or whatever. But, Cam Newton's still out there. Cam Newton maybe would take a contract like that. I don't know what kind of starting job there's going to be left for Cam Newton. There's been no talk about him going to the Patriots, so let's not expect that to happen. But I don't understand this pick with James Morgan. The scouting report on him says NFL arm and a gunslinger mentality, but apparently that the mentality gets him into trouble much more often than it helps.
Right.
Average accuracy. So I don't get it because this is a guy. This was. I mean, I understand. Yes, respect your board. I don't know how this kid was best available.
Right.
When Jake Fromm out of Georgia is still on the board, I don't know how this kid is from Florida International is best available.
Right. Okay. Well, one more person we'll talk about: Cameron Clark, another offensive line guy.
Good motor, which I love. I mean, and later round picks, Cameron Clark 6'5", 308. Obviously, they're going to want to try and put another 12 pounds on him or something, get him up to about 320. But good motor, and is a guy who likes the contact and likes to throw people around. Good pass blocker. Maybe not athletic or so athletic, and which is probably why he wound up at Charlotte in the first place. The analysis that I saw said that he could be a punishing guard, and I'll tell you what, if that's what you're getting, if he turns into that player, the punishing guard, then this is a great pick at number 4. But again, this is take a guy who has one quality and hope you can develop the rest of them.
Okay, we're running out of time, brother. I wanted to mention that I saw episodes 3 and 4 of The Last Dance on ESPN. And first of all, for those who don't know, ESPN is airing the unedited version, and ESPN2 is airing the edited version. So
I didn't know that, brother. Maybe that's why I heard profanity on my TV last night.
Right. So, if you want, they probably said this to Rodman. Okay, Rodman, you can curse if you want because we're going to have 2 versions airing at the same time. And Rodman's just cursing up a storm. And it's like, that's what you expect from Rodman, of course. But then you hear Michael Jordan cursing all over the place. It's like, hold it. You're the Haynes guy. Come on.
Jordan dropped F-bombs everywhere.
Oh, my God. He was he was trying to prove something.
Don't pretend that didn't happen.
And then last night...
That's what we need, brother. We need an alternate WHPC so we can drop F-bombs.
Well, yeah, of course.
Sean would love that.
I'm sure he's working on it right now.
There you go.
But it was nice. Part of it they were playing last night was they're talking about the bad boys. And you watch the clips of them, man. Lambeer was literally tackling people like he was playing football out there.
Lambeer was a goon. He really was a goon.
Oh, my God.
But you know what? He and Mahorn didn't make any excuses for it. That's what they were, and they said that's what we are, and they didn't have any problems with it. But that's the way the league was back then. There was no easy layups. That's how the league was.
Yeah, I know, because I always think about the Knicks that went to the finals in '93 or '94, I should say, and that was
same kind of team.
Same kind of
Oakley, Mason, they were the guys. They were the guys that were doling out the hits, and Ewing too, to a lesser extent, because they didn't want Ewing to get technicals or get thrown out of the game. Yep. But if a guy was coming down the lane, Charles Oakley had no problems with beating the hell out of him.
Yeah, and it was interesting. They had a clip of Jordan after they lost to the second time to the Pistons when the Pistons that year when they won the second championship in a row, and he said to himself, and he said to anyone else who would listen, I'm going to gain some more muscle so I don't get clocked every time I go down the court.
That's what he had to do.
He did. He gained the weight, and then he also started to learn he had to pass the ball a little more too, and that's why the Bulls became the Bulls, because if you're just going to focus on Jordan, okay. But then, all these other players I can pass to, and then it changes everything around. And,
when Phil Jackson got Jordan to realize, hey, John Paxson can help you.
Right.
And they showed Paxson making jumper after jumper, and Paxson was a good player, he was a good shooter.
Yeah,
he wasn't just a guy on the court running around. He was a good player.
Yeah, and I want to maybe take back what I said last week about Pippen. I still believe that without Jordan, Pippen's not the same player, but
of course not.
But at the same time, he helped Jordan become a better player because Jordan trusted him so much.
Of course.
And so, when you're that great of a player, you always need a kind of a sidekick because you can't do it yourself. And so it's, so Pippen, I didn't realize how important he was to Jordan because Jordan was talking him up left and right. So,
Yeah, but that's like you said, that when you're a great player, and especially one like Jordan, and the offense was designed for him to do whatever he could, you need a second guy.
Yep.
Because and you need to be able to trust that guy, and that's why Jordan loved Pippen so much, because he saw a guy who could do everything, could create his own shot, could score points in bunches, and he didn't have to worry about Scottie Pippen. He didn't have to say, well, geez, what's he going to do? Is he going to give me 30 points tonight, or is he going to give me 8 points tonight?
Right.
He knew Scottie Pippen was going to give him 20 something every night, and that he could rely on that. And that's what Jordan wanted. He wanted as many guys around him as he could rely on as possible. And that, that's why those.
Yeah, it was very
so
good. I hope ESPN. They showed clips from these games. I hope because there's no programming for another month. I do hope that they show some of the actual games from this time, because it's such a different history for the NBA. This era where people were
I don't know if the NBA will want these games shown, because it really was a much more physical league.
Oh my God! Yeah, you just
it's
forget
so
about
much
it.
Different.
Yeah,
so much.
And and then of course Isaiah's on, and he's trying to defend when they walked off the court, not shaking the Bulls' hand when the Bulls destroyed them 4 games in a row.
I agree with Michael Jordan for everything he said about Isaiah.
Yep.
Everything.
Now Isaiah's well, nowadays we would have done it, but back then, and of course it was Lambeer who whispered in his ear, we should walk off the court without shaking. So
I don't even know if that's true.
Well, that's what Isaiah said.
They'll throw Lambeer under the bus because he doesn't care, but I don't know that that's true. And Michael Jordan, I obviously can't repeat what he said, but he said, whatever Isaiah told you, that was BS.
That's why you should watch the ESPN version, not the ESPN2 version. Anyway, brother, we have to get going. Big Ed's coming up next with the Good Gold Show. Tim, you're at Twitter at
Real Tim Leonard.
And thank you all for listening. We'll see you in 167 hours with more sports from the press box. And I'll see you Friday with Beatles songs and Sunday with the Free for All.